Oh, I just wanted to make sure you were watching. I had my eye on you. I was just making sure you were watching. It's cool. How you guys doing? I am the Jer Bear. Today is December 13th, 2020. It is a Sunday. This is a Sunday video update. How you guys doing? I hope you all had a wonderful week. My week was really good, actually. So I would say that Dad and Amy's joining me off camera. Amy's in the bedroom. My dad is over here, a sleeping daddy-o. I think he was up late, and so now he's going to sleep in. It's actually going on 12:30 right now. That's Eastern Daylight Time for those of you. Because I know, I get viewers from all over the country, and I think there are some people who live outside the United States who can watch my videos as well. I honestly don't know how far out my videos reach, but it's pretty amazing. Like, I can talk, I can upload a video, and I get feedback like an email, text, and text messages, mainly from my friends. They say, well, I watched your video this week, man. It was really good. It's always good to hear your voice and to see your face. And yeah, so thanks for the positive feedback, and thanks for watching my videos every week. It really, it's just my way of telling my friends in particular how I'm doing. I don't give away too much information because I also have people who they like to watch my videos and try to use my videos and my words against me. So I have to be very careful on how I wish to proceed when I speak in my videos. But most days I just don't give a fuck, and I'll just say whatever I want, which is usually what happens anyway. But I've been doing really good. Amy, she tested positive for the COVID. She announced that last week. She's still officially in quarantine until tomorrow, so she's got one more day of quarantine, and then she should be in the clear. She comes out only when necessary, just like I did when I was quarantined in my bedroom. But when I started to feel better and I started to get my strength back and I started to, get my energy and just get back on the flow of things, I said, fuck it, I'm not staying in my bedroom. I want to come out and see what's going on in the house, And, I've ventured out a couple times this week, of course, wearing my mask because I just need to get out. I need to just get out and see life, and I need to see people, and I need to know that, there is still life out there apart from the fact that I've been, here at home for an overwhelming majority of the time. But like I said, whenever I go in public, I always wear my mask. I keep the social distancing of 6 feet. I maintain the distance. And of course, I wash my hands. I was at Bronner's yesterday. I went out to Frankenmuth yesterday. It wasn't as packed as I thought it was going to be. I actually went there last night. And it wasn't packed, but every chance I had, they leave out the hand sanitizer. I'm squirting, I'm putting the hand sanitizer on. I'm wiping my hands down real good. I got my mask on, and I'm staying 6 feet away from, the other people around me, especially the staff members. And it's really, it's, I see people, like when I went to Bronner's last night, there were still people who were venturing out without masks, and it was really frustrating to me because, yes, while the masks are meant to protect other people if you have the COVID, right? Or if you may have the symptoms of the COVID, the masks are to prevent other people from getting it. And when I see people without masks on, it really irritates me. It pisses me off. Because you need to understand that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and the rules apply to you, whether you like it or not. They apply to everybody because health applies to everybody, and we don't live in a germ-free world. That reality just doesn't exist. Germs are everywhere, constantly. Although, like here at home, we take the precautionary measures by spraying things and wiping everything down. But the germs are going to live in the air regardless of how much you spray and wipe and try to keep everything disinfected, there's always going to be germs. That's just the way it is. That's just the way reality is. That's the world we live in. That's the environment. There's always going to be germs. But if we can, when it comes to the COVID, if we can do our part to help flatten the curve and, get rid of this thing once and for all, the least you could do is participate in the efforts to get rid of this shit, to obliterate the COVID once and for all. Wear your mask, wash your hands or sanitize or whatever, keep the social distancing of 6 feet. It's not hard to understand. It's not hard to figure out. It's not too much to ask, because this is a very serious situation that we have going on, and it's not just in the United States. It's all over the world. It's all over the globe. It's a global pandemic. But it's just getting people orientated enough to say, you know what? You got to start doing this. You got to start getting involved in taking the precautionary measures. A lot of businesses won't even allow you to come in if you're not wearing a mask. It's kind of like the no shirt, no shoes, no service policy. Well, now it's no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service, which, they do what they have to do, because a lot of these places, there were some businesses in Michigan. I think I mentioned this in last week's video. There's a lot of restaurants and businesses that are refusing to follow the orders of the state, which the state is saying no dine-in, takeout only. And the businesses, the business owners are saying, you know what, fuck that. We're going to allow people to come in anyway. Well, they've been getting hit with fines, like thousands of dollars in fines. One restaurant, I think, was even fined like up to $5,000. I think I mentioned that last week. I don't watch the weeks prior. I just ad-lib everything. And but yeah, one of the business owners was hit with a $5,000 fine. And it's like, just follow the rules. Just do what you are asked of you. But I don't know. It's really something. Oh, by the way, I'm wearing a Michigan State Spartans shirt this week. Last week I also wore a Michigan State Spartans shirt. It wasn't this one. It said Michigan State Spartans, and then underneath of that it said East Lansing, Michigan. This one just says Michigan State Spartans. And of course I'm drinking coffee out of my Sparty cup, which I always drink. Well, most of the time. I mean, not always. Sometimes when I drink tea, I'll just drink tea out of a regular glass, but I always drink coffee out of my coffee cup because it just seems more, appropriate. I don't watch football, but when there is a game on, my dad watches football. He understands football. I really don't understand it all that much. But when there is a game on and I see the Spartans are playing against somebody, and it's like, you know what? I only watch the score. Like, okay, all I know is if the Sparties have a high score and the opposing team has a low score, that's a good thing because I want Sparties to win. And the only reason I want the Sparties to win, although I'm not a sports aficionado, but the only reason I want the Spartans to win is because of the fact that when I had cancer, I was at Sparrow in Lansing, but I also spent a lot of time at the clinical center on the campus of Michigan State University, and that's where my oncologists were 30 years ago when I go for my checkups, or scans as they're called nowadays. But that's basically why I like the Sparties. Really, I mean, I'm not into the sports. I don't watch sports, but I just want the Spartans to win because I have this bias with Spartans. I have this special pleading or whatever you want to call it with the Spartans. And I just like to see them win. And even if they lose, you gave it your best shot. It's not a big deal. It's not like my feelings about the Sparties are going to change just because they lose. But yeah, I am a Michigan State Spartans fan. And speaking of my state, when I was in quarantine, I was doing a lot of Google searching, and I like to learn about the history of my state, how the cities and how the counties got their names and how they were incorporated or how old they are, like in what year were they incorporated as towns and villages and cities and things like that. So I've been doing a lot of Google searching and just looking up all this information, especially when I was in quarantine. I had nothing else to do. TV got boring after a while, and it's like, I want to just look up some information about my state. And in doing so, I learned that Michigan is popular, which I already knew that we're home of Kellogg's cereal, General Motors, Motown music, Jiffy Mix, not Jif peanut butter, Jiffy Mix, the stuff that the batter, you make blueberry and strawberry, raspberry muffins and stuff like that. Jiffy Mix comes in a little box. Traverse City is the cherry capital of the world. Grand Rapids is where furniture is made. There's a lot of different things about my state that is really super cool. And I always look up the history, like, we're home of this, we're home of that. Like, really? Like, I sent some music to a friend of mine who's, she's a mom of a cancer warrior, and I asked her, I said, well, do you have any Christmas music, for the holidays to keep it festive around the house? She says, I don't have any Christmas music. I said, well, I have a collection. Let me hook you up with some Christmas music. And she says, oh, I'd love that. So I emailed a bunch of MP3s to her, and Motown Christmas, like Stevie Wonder and Diana Ross and the Supremes, and the song called You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. Well, the singer of that song is Thurl Ravenscroft, and Thurl Ravenscroft was actually the original voice of Tony the Tiger in the Kellogg's cereal commercials. Of course, Kellogg's is headquartered. The main headquarters is in Battle Creek, Michigan. And a lot of people didn't know that. Like, they didn't know that Jiffy Mix was made in Chelsea, Michigan. Chelsea, of course, is located about 10 minutes from downtown Ann Arbor. It's not far away at all. It's not far apart from Ann Arbor. But it's not called the Jiffy Company. It's actually called the Chelsea Milling Company. And if you have a box of Jiffy Mix, and if you look at the bottom, it says Chelsea Milling Company on the bottom of the box, and it's located in the town of Chelsea. And M52, which is the highway that goes north and south, that's about 2.5 miles east of me. 52 goes into Chelsea. It takes you right into Chelsea. In fact, it'll take you through Adrian, and then it takes you eventually into Ohio. But there's a lot of things come from Michigan. Mackinac Island Fudge, of course, is a Michigan thing. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, if you have ever saw the movie Polar Express, the 2004, it's a cartoon movie. It's got the Bosom Buddies in it. It's got Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari. The sound effects of that train in the movie The Polar Express, those were recorded at the Mid-Michigan Railroad Institute in Owasso, which is not even 20 miles away from where I live. It's a true story. The Pere Marquette 1225 is a steam locomotive. It runs on coal. And what they did is they, to get the sound effects for the movie, they just had like this long rod, and they held it like this, and there was a microphone dangling at the end of it, and they just recorded the whistle and the steam coming out from the top, and the bell dinging. They just recorded all of the sound effects and the chugga 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 when it's going down the track. They just recorded all of that from the steam locomotive. So yes, that has Michigan ties. And the Pure Michigan commercials, because I know the Pure Michigan commercials are national, and the voiceover for the Pure Michigan commercials, the voice behind those is in fact Tim Allen. And his brother, he mentioned in an interview that a brother of his lives in Muskegon on the west side of the state, and Tim Allen actually owns a cottage in Michigan. I don't know where. He didn't disclose that information, but, not all of them do, which is fine. because you don't want people stalking, obviously. But we're known for so much. We're known for so many different things, like Verner's Ginger Ale. I know Verner's is sold in other states, but while the 7-Up and Dr. Pepper company is in Plano, Texas, Verner's Ginger Ale is made in Michigan. It's in Holland, which is that's what I love about being a Michigander. You always got a map in your hand. Holland is on the west side of the state. Verner's used to be headquartered in Detroit. Detroit, down about like down here. It used to be headquartered in Detroit, and then they just moved it to Holland, which all the way across the state, right down the I-96, freeway. But yeah, there's a little bit like the Boston Cooler, which is Verner's Ginger Ale and vanilla ice cream. It's been a long time since I've had a Boston Cooler, but that originated in Detroit, actually. So yeah, there's just all kinds of interesting things. Like we have, like REO Speedwagon, the band REO Speedwagon. What does the REO stand for? Well, the REO part stands for Ransom Eli Olds, the founder of Oldsmobile. Ransom Eli Olds lived in Lansing. And Oldsmobile cars were built in Lansing. There is a General Motors Grand River assembly plant in Lansing today, but they don't make Oldsmobiles anymore. I think they stopped making Olds. But the REO stands for Ransom Eli Olds and REO Speedwagon. And if you're from Lansing, or if you're from out of state and you want to visit Lansing, Interstate 496, which cuts right through the heart of the downtown Lansing area, they call that Olds Freeway, named after Ransom Eli Olds. So there's all kinds of history, just like Malcolm X. He lived in Lansing. In fact, I think he died in Lansing. I would have to do my research, but there is a street named after him. They just call it Malcolm X, and it's in Lansing. Let me do a little Google search. See, this is why I love Google so much, because you can learn everything about anything pretty much. Malcolm X. Okay. Well, he died in New York. Okay, so he died in New York. He didn't die in Lansing. He lived in Lansing, but he died in New York. So, correction. Let's see here if I can find Lansing in this article on Wikipedia. He was born on May 19th, 1925, and died on February 21st, 1965. He was 39 years old. But he did live in Lansing. I know he did. Excuse me. Sinuses are kind of running a little bit, guys. Let's see. He was born in Omaha, Nebraska. Okay. Because of Ku Klux Klan threats, activities were said to be spreading trouble, and the family relocated in 1926 to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, shortly thereafter to Lansing, Michigan. There, the family was frequently harassed by the Black Legion, a white racist group Earl accused of burning their family home in 1929. You would have to read the article. Earl Little, and yeah. But, yeah. In 37, a man Louise had been dating, okay, this is further down, like a couple paragraphs down. Marriage had seemed a possibility. Vanished from her life when she became pregnant with his child. In late 38, she had a nervous breakdown and was committed to Kalamazoo State Hospital. So, okay, Malcolm attended West Junior High School in Lansing and then Mason High School in Mason, Michigan, but left high school in 1941 before graduating. See, again, there's all kinds of history. Like, Oh, I'm still reading. I'm still reading. After a short time in Flint, Michigan, he moved to New York City's Harlem neighborhood in 1943, where he found employment on the New Haven Railroad and engaged in drug dealing, gambling, racketeering, robbery, and pimping. According to recent biographies, Malcolm also occasionally had sex with other men, usually for money, though his conjecture has been disputed by those who knew him. See, uh, there's just so much history. But I know I didn't have to read that specific piece about sex with other men, but there's a lot of like history. Like he has connections with Michigan. Um, Malcolm X was known as Detroit Red. Wow, and it just goes on and on and on and on. But the point of that was Malcolm X has Michigan ties. That was the point. But like I said, I got a little reading some of his personal. But that that's good to know. I mean, Wikipedia is a huge help. A lot of information on there. Some of it may be accurate. Some of it may be like marginally inaccurate in some spots. But the thing is that there's all kinds of Michigan connections. Like Ted Nugent is from Michigan. Of course, Stevie Wonder, Madonna, like all the not all the Motown artists, but like Michael Jackson when he was with Jackson 5. Of course, he was from Gary, Indiana, which is the state that's that way. He signed with the Motown record label. As a matter of fact, speaking of Stevie Wonder, he was born in Saginaw, and of course, he was signed with the Motown record label. And I read on Wikipedia that shortly after his first record was released, I think it was back in '63 or something like that. I'd have to look at Wikipedia again. But shortly after his record was released, he enrolled in the Michigan School for the Blind in Lansing. It's just overwhelming information. There's all kinds of Michigan everywhere you look. But I love reading up on the history of my state and like important people like Malcolm X and Ransom Eli Olds and Stevie Wonder and although Stevie Wonder is a gifted musician, I would consider him to be an important person. Maybe that's just part of my bias, but I like Motown, and I like Stevie Wonder, and I like Diana Ross and all the Motown groups, which, by the way, if this pandemic ends in 2021, I'm planning a trip down to the Motown Museum, Hitsville, USA, which is in Detroit. It's on Grand Boulevard. I have never been there. I've been to Detroit, but I've never been to Hitsville, USA, the Motown Museum, and I might like to go check it out. I'd have to look into that a little more to find out if it costs to go in, if I have to pay like a cover charge or whatever the case may be. I'll have to look into that more because I'm not really familiar with how that works. It's closed now because of the COVID, but like I said, hopefully the COVID will be gone in 2021, and I'll go down there and check it out. Detroit's a big city, and I'll be sure to drive through town with my windows up and my doors locked. But I also plan to visit, like the Kellogg's cereal factory. They used to have tours of the Kellogg's factory in Battle Creek, but because there was this fear that employees of competing cereal companies were coming in and trying to crack the secret codes or whatever, and they were, trying to get information. And so in order to quell those fears, they decided to put an end to public tours of the factory. They used to have Cereal City in Battle Creek, but then Cereal City closed, and I think it was back in 2007. But they still have like a little museum or like a little place you can go on Battle Creek where you can see the history through the years of like Kellogg's and even Post cereal, and they got like Tony the Tiger and the Rice Krispies elves and Cornelius the Rooster from the Corn Flakes and Toucan Sam from the Kellogg's Fruit Loops. That's all Michigan stuff, guys. That's really like the heart of, they call Battle Creek Cereal City. It still might be Cereal City, the cereal capital of the world. But Kellogg's also makes Rice Krispies treats, of course. They have a cereal called Crave, which you probably see in your local grocery store. In fact, you might even eat it. But there's, like I said, there's all kinds of things that originated in Michigan, like Verner's Ginger Ale, Faygo Cola. We're known for pine trees and pasties and Mackinac Island fudge. We're known for, of course, General Motors. We build cars here. We are known for so many different things, like the Edmund Fitzgerald, the 1975 hit by Gordon Lightfoot, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, is based on a true story. It was a ship, I think it was hauling iron ore to Detroit, and they got caught in Lake Superior, and the gales of November came early, and that's one of the lines in the song, is that the gales of November came early, and all 29 men died, including the captain. So, like I said, there's just all kinds of history, and I love that. I love that we can preserve our history, and I love to learn about different places. And it's amazing. Like, sometimes when I go on my joyrides, and I mentioned this before, but sometimes I'll go on my joyrides, I'll go down like these old these back roads, dirt roads, like places that time had forgotten about, right? I love to visit those. You see old barns and old churches, old, schoolhouses, and like old buildings and old cemeteries, and, it's just fascinating to me that all of these different places have stood the test of time throughout the generations, dating back to like the 17 and the 1800s, and we have been able to preserve history through the years, and we've been able to, replenish the architecture of all these buildings, and we've been able to keep all of these buildings standing, and it's remarkable, and it's amazing, and I love the history, because I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, which, by the way, we've repaired our friendship. So I'm happy about that. She's a mom of a cancer warrior. We repaired our friendship, so I'm ecstatic about that. But anyway, there's a lot of things that we agree on. Like, she likes the smell of old books, as do I. Like, you can take a book that was printed 50, 60, 70, 80, maybe even 100 years ago, and the wisdom of that time, it's like, wow. And you smell the pages, you smell the ink, and it's like, wow. Like, the wisdom, like, you can smell the wisdom, so to speak. And it's amazing. Just the history, how it withstands the test of time. And like the old barns, like the old barns will still stand, but the houses will be gone, which it's sad, but it's at the same time it's fascinating, because the old barns, they've withstood all kinds of weather changes, and they're still standing. It's like it's just amazing to me. But anyway, I'm getting carried away. I've rambled on quite a bit about that, but it is really fascinating to me. And other than like the history of Michigan or whatever, I was also doing a lot of other research, like on musicians from like back in the late 60s, maybe the early 70s or whatever. And there is a group called the 21 Club, which I wasn't aware of, or I'm sorry, the 27 Club, which I wasn't aware of the 27 Club. Basically, it's a collection of, like, they document all of the rock stars, the pop stars who died at the age of 27, which includes Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Pigpen from the Grateful Dead, Pete Ham from Badfinger, just all these different people who died at the age of 27. And I listened to their music, which I love the older music. And these people they were gifted artists. Like, I listen to Jim Morrison's music. I love The Doors. And he was a poet. He was just a free thinker. He expressed himself very, sharply. And he died at such a young age. And it's like, it's to me, it's just such a waste. It's a waste of talent, because these people were gifted. They had a gift, and they got caught up in the booze and the drugs, and some of them even committed suicide. And it's really a shame that all this talent, and the reason I was looking this information up is because, of course, last week, December 8th, was the 40th anniversary of the assassination of John Lennon. Of course, John Lennon, the Beatles. And it really made me think. I even wrote this down in my journal that it was 40 years ago on this evening that John Lennon was murdered outside of the Dakota Apartments in New York City. And, I wasn't alive for any of John Lennon's work. My parents were. My mom and dad, they were born like at the right time. My mom was born in 1962, so she was born like right at the beginning stages of when the Beatles started to take off, and, Beatlemania, of course. My dad remembers watching Ed Sullivan and seeing the Beatles on, I think it was on a Sunday night, as a matter of fact. Ed Sullivan used to come on, and Dad says he remembers seeing the Beatles perform like She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand on the Ed Sullivan Show. That was back in, I think, 64 or something like that. But my dad was 5 and 6 years old in 1964, so he remembers, my mom was born in 62, like I said, so she probably wouldn't remember a lot of that, but a sneeze is coming. Oh. Oh, thank you. But she was born, like, she had the Beatles when she was a kid. That's the point. My parents had the Beatles when they were kids, and Elvis Presley at the same time. Although Elvis came before the Beatles, like 10 years, before the Beatles really started to take off, and it was their heyday. But I was really just, when I remember John Lennon was murdered on December 8th, 1980. I remember that bit of history. And it prompted me to look into the other artists who had long since died before John Lennon was murdered. And yes, even Keith Moon from The Who. Keith Moon, I had read so much about him. I watched documentaries about him. He was a real wildcat back in the day, of course. He died in 1978. And he was a very gifted and talented musician. I think he was the drummer for The Who, I think. Let me consult Google. Because Google is like my best fucking friend, and it's been my best friend for like weeks now. Keith Moon, yes. Okay, he was the drummer for The Who. Okay, I was right. He was born on August 23rd, 1946, and he died on September 7th, 1978. He was a drummer, and he was a vocalist for, according to this. So he was with the Plastic Ono Band. Interesting. Didn't know that. Keith Moon, drum solo in 1974. John Entwistle, Roger Daltrey. Pete Townsend, Cass Elliot from Mamas and the Papas. Which her death was also very tragic. I watched news footage of Cass Elliott's death, and a lot of the news reports from back in that time, I think it was 70, when she died in 74, and a lot of that, like when the news footage was coming out, they were saying that she choked to death on a ham sandwich. that was what they were saying. We'll see what Wikipedia has to say. On April, let's see, let's read into this a little bit. On April 22nd, 1974, Cass Elliot collapsed in the Burbank, California television studio of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Immediately before her scheduled appearance on the show, she was treated at a hospital and released, then dismissed the incident as simple exhaustion in interviews such as her May 7th appearance on The Tonight Show and the American television talk show The Mike Douglas Show. Her appearance on that episode of The Mike Douglas Show turned out to be her last for television. Yeah, right here. So I'm going to skip down a few paragraphs here. That night, Elliot, age 32, died in her sleep at the London flat where she was staying. According to forensic pathologist Keith Simpson, who conducted her autopsy, her death was due to heart failure. A drug screen that was part of the forensic autopsy revealed there were no drugs in her system. Elliot died in flat 12, 9 Curzon Place. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Later, Curzon Square. Shepherd Market, Mayfair, London, which was on loan from singer-songwriter Harry Nilsson, which Harry Nilsson is also another one of my favorite artists. 4 years later, The Who's drummer Keith Moon died in the same room, also aged 32 years old. Elliot's body was cremated at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, California. Her ashes were later buried in Mount Sinai Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles. Here we go. An oft-repeated urban legend is that Elliot choked to death on a ham sandwich. The story spread soon after the discovery of her body and was based on speculation in the initial media coverage, which is what I just said. A 2014 article in Harrods, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, identified the person who started the false rumor as follows. Unfortunately, the first doctor in London who examined her speculated to the press about the cause of death, and that's the version that stuck. An autopsy had not been performed when the physician was quoted, and the Metropolitan Police told reporters that a partially eaten sandwich found in her room might have been relevant to the cause of death. When Keith Simpson performed the autopsy, he determined that Elliot had died of heart failure and that no food was present in her windpipe. So, I pretty much just said that, but I figured I'd read the paragraph in its entirety, or at least maybe just that chunk of the paragraph. Wikipedia is just an amazing source of information. The thing is when you read up on these musicians, these artists, I mean, it's amazing to me how, I mean, these people were just incredibly talented. You know, that's why I'm so jealous of my mom and dad, because they were around in those days, you know, the 60s and the 70s, and, you know, like Flower Power and, you know, the Summer of Love and all that. My parents were around in those days, and they had all of this amazing, beautiful music that these artists like Buffalo Springfield and the Beatles and Bob Dylan and all these people were just expressing their artistic side. Jimi Hendrix and you know, Janis Joplin, beautiful lady. And it's just, it's a shame that it just gotten so bad to the point where they were into drugs and they were into booze, and it just got the better of them, and then it ended up taking them ultimately, which is sad, because they were just so gifted, you know, they were talented. And I was watching a bunch of videos on YouTube last week, and of course Dad was watching them with me, and it's like, how the fuck does that happen? Like, these people they had a message. They were, you know, free thinkers. They were expressing themselves. They didn't care what anybody thought about them. They were being their own individual selves, and that's what made them so beautiful. And that's what inspired and influenced me to just be myself. And if people are, they're going to like me, they're going to hate me, they're going to love me, whatever the case may be. Either way, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I am being true to myself, and I'm expressing myself freely. And, like most artists like that are misunderstood. And, but they did have a message. They did have a message, and that message was very loud and clear. But, wow, just such wonderful talent, wasted. And John Lennon definitely fits that description, because John Lennon was I love the Beatles. I'm a Beatles fanatic. I'm a Beatles aficionado. I love their music, and their personalities were different. Each of the four lads, they each had their own personality. And if I had to, if I could identify my personality with any of the four, it would be John Lennon, because I love to write, I love to draw, I love to paint, although I don't paint as much. But when I was a kid, I loved to paint, and I loved to write, and I loved to draw, and but I can't play music. I can't play a guitar. Dad's waking up. Well, hello, Dad. Good afternoon. I've actually been here for about almost an hour, because it was 12:15 when I hit the record button. How are you doing, Dad? Just waking up. You feeling okay?
Yeah.
Did you have a good week?
Yeah.
Yeah? I figured Dad would be joining us off camera eventually. But I've just been sitting here rambling and talking about different things. I don't even know what my plans are for this week. I guess it's too early to tell. I think there should be coffee out there. I made a pot earlier this morning, or about around, 11 o'clock or so. Because I actually slept in too. I was up late, and I was watching YouTube videos and just kind of Google searching things and just researching things and finding out information. Like, I'm not really sure about this, but I'm going to look it up. And one of the things I also looked up, which I thought was really fascinating to me, because I've every so often, like I even mentioned it in the Daily Rant recording that I did a couple days ago, where people like to argue about the Earth being flat. And there's a lot of different ways that we can demonstrate that the Earth is an oblate spheroid. And the thing is that you have people who they think they have a common sense logical argument for the Earth being flat. And it's like, it's just not so. And I do mention this a lot in my Daily Rant recordings, but the thing is, because it's so obnoxiously stupid to think that the Earth is flat when we have mountains of evidence demonstrating that the Earth is a sphere. Then there's many different ways you can figure this out, that the Earth is a sphere. First of all, when you look at the moon at night and the moon looks like a fingernail in the sky, well, that's the sun casting the Earth's shadow onto the moon. Because if the Earth was flat and the sun was casting the Earth's shadow into space, or onto the moon, there would be like a black strip going down the center of the moon, and you would have like two halves of the moon appearing in the sky. And that's just not the case. The Earth is a sphere. And it doesn't matter, and the orientation doesn't matter, because the sun is always casting the Earth's shadow into space. So if we see even half of the moon, or like a fingernail part of the moon, that is the Earth's shadow on the side of the moon, and then the part of the moon that's visible is illuminated by the sun, that isn't, in the Earth's shadow, or you know what I mean. Like, it's not part of the Earth's shadow. That's one way to tell that the Earth is a sphere. Another way to tell that the Earth is a sphere is that we have a satellite that's currently in orbit. It's a Japanese weather satellite. It's called the Himawari 8. It takes high-resolution pictures of the planet, of Earth, from thousands of miles away from the Earth's surface. And it orbits the Earth. So we have evidence of the Earth being a sphere because you can see the curvature of the Earth in the pictures. A lot of people think that it's a conspiracy, but it's really not. Those are real pictures. And they're taken, I think, every 10 seconds or 10 minutes, something like that. They have an updated version of the Earth as the camera catches it. So that's another way. The fact that we have time zones. Now, if the Earth was flat and you think that the sun... See, this is what's so absurd to me. This is the absurd part. Is that people think that the sun is shining everywhere at the same time. And that's just not the case. The Earth, because the Earth is a sphere and because we have time zones, the time zones are contingent upon the positioning of the sun at certain points of the day. So when the sun goes down in New York City, guess what? The sun is still shining in Los Angeles. That's what the time zones are contingent upon the positioning of the sun at certain points of the day. That should be the easiest way to tell that the Earth is a sphere. Another way that we can tell that the Earth is a sphere, there are actually two more ways that we can tell the Earth is a sphere. The flight patterns, right? We have flight patterns. Like commercial shipping or just, traveling, leisure travel. Those flight patterns are carefully calculated around the Earth. So that way they have to know where they're going and how they're going to get to their destination without hitting each other, colliding in midair. So we have flight patterns. We have, all these different things going on. That's another way we can tell that the Earth is a sphere. And one more way we can tell that the Earth is a sphere, which might excite you a little bit, is that if you ever notice storms move from west to east, generally, that's because they move along this thing called a jet stream, which circles the Earth. It circles the Earth. The storms move from west to east because of the jet stream, and it goes all the way around the Earth. The jet stream does, not the storms. That's what I'm saying. There are many ways of discovering. Even the well, even an experiment done by Eratosthenes, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, he dug wells like 100 miles apart, and he put a well here and he put a well here, and they used sundials, And the thing is that the sun shines at different angles, in the wells. I mean, there's a video on this, and they explain it better. But if the Earth was flat, wow. So you think we're surfing through space and time on a hubcap, right? It's obnoxiously absurd. We have all kinds of evidence that tells us that the Earth is a sphere, and it's just people who want to believe subjective opinions on an objective level, and it just doesn't work. Because I even tell people, I say, well, you know what, your feelings are no longer relevant to this because we have evidence to suggest that this is the case. And people look at us, oh, Jared, you're being so rude to me. Why would you say my feelings don't matter? Because they fucking don't. When you have evidence for something, and we can determine that with evidence that is the case, or lacking, you know what? Your feelings don't matter. Your feelings are irrelevant. Especially when we have evidence for something. And I'm skeptical about a lot of things. But I'm not so skeptical to the point where I'm cynical. Like, I don't look for fault in everything. I just say, you know what? I'm skeptical in the way where I say, you know what, we don't have evidence for this yet. So I'm not gonna hold any belief until we have evidence for this. Just it's part of the reason why I'm an atheist, because there's just no evidence for a God. And it's not the same thing as saying there is no God. I'm just saying that exploring the universe and you know, coming upon amazing discoveries about our world, I see no evidence that would suggest to me that there is a God or a God existed. So I am an atheist until there's evidence for a God. Then I will believe. If you know, somehow it's revealed to me that a God exists, then I will believe it. But until such time, I'm not convinced. And really, what is religion? It's faith-based. And with science, there is no faith. There's just evidence. There's objective truth. And it's just like people who think that climate change is a hoax, and it's not a hoax. There's data that shows that human beings are responsible for climate change. There's actual evidence and scientific data pouring in, showing that we are responsible for that. And something else that's even fascinating, I'm just rambling, I'm just going on. Something else that's fascinating to me as well is the fact that we have this COVID pandemic, right? And people, they tend to deny evolution. Well, we're evolving every day. We're evolving right now. We don't know how we're evolving, but our DNA, the genetics of human beings are evolving somehow, some way every day. Well, the fact that we have a COVID pandemic now, which we never had before, we didn't have it, you know, back in 2005. The COVID pandemic should be all out and out evidence that evolution is real, because pandemics, epidemics are evidence of evolution in motion, right? The cells mutate. There are such things as mutating cells. So the fact that we have evidence for the COVID, that is also contingent upon evolution, because we didn't have that before. And we have evolved to this point where now we have a COVID pandemic. And people say, well, I didn't come from an ape. No one said we came from apes. We share a common ancestor with the greater apes of the world. That's scientifically proven information. And like I had stated one time before, when you look at there's different there's different locations with evolution, how gradually it came to human beings. We walk upright, we have opposable thumbs and all that stuff. But there are gaps that are being filled. And when those gaps are filled, you can see over billions of years, millions of years of evolution that has occurred. We went from this point, and through the years, we gradually made it up to here, which human beings, we walk upright, we have the opposable thumbs. This is a gradual thing that happened over millions of years of we started here, or this is a starting point, and then little by little through the years, it just, we come up to this point. Science is very fascinating to me. There's still a lot of things that scientists don't know. There's a lot of things that I don't know. I don't presume to be a scientist, but I understand the science. I understand the education. I understand how things work. Like, especially with the solar system, people think the Earth is flat, but they think we know that all other planets are a sphere in the solar system, but yeah, Earth is the exception. Earth is, the hubcap that we're surfing on through space and time. No, the Earth is a sphere. We have tremendous amounts of evidence for that. But I'm rambling. I don't know. How are you doing, Dad? You enjoying your coffee?
Oh, yeah. That's funny to talk about the pandemic.
Yeah.
Is they can find a cure for that, they're finding medications to cure that pandemic when people get sick.
The Moderna.
But they can't find it for cancer. Why? What? That picture don't look right.
You know, and that's when I was an advocate for childhood cancer. That's one of the points I brought up is that, you know, we have cures. They can find cures for everything else, but not a cure for cancer. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not actively working around the clock,
So
trying to find the cure.
Find the pandemic, a cure for this medicine for this coronavirus. Why can't they find it for the
Well,
cancer?
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm getting at is that they're working around the clock. Science is always constantly like it's an around the clock. It never stops. It never sleeps. Why they haven't found a cure for cancer, I don't know. I have no clue. They haven't cracked the code for killing cancer. I don't know why.
But they're finding a cure to kill.
But for a COVID pandemic, because I can say with a great deal of certainty that COVID and cancer are nowhere near similar. They are not the same at all.
But they're still killing people.
But we have an immediate, we have the Moderna, which is going to be the remedy for the COVID. But for cancer, like we still haven't found a cure for DIPG, and we still haven't found a cure for, like a panacea for all cancers. Yeah, that is a bit strange, and Dad does bring up a good point, but
if they could find just one
cancer and COVID are two different things.
A piece of the cancer, Jared,
yeah.
would be great.
Like they cured me, but that doesn't mean that all Wilms survivors or Wilms warriors are going to be cured. And they haven't been cured because there have been children who've had Wilms tumor and they died.
Yeah.
I could have died. But see, there are different stages of Wilms tumor or nephroblastoma.
We won't get into that, though. That's just the point that I want.
Well, no, I understand. You were trying to make a point, and it's a good point because, COVID and cancer are not the same. They are nowhere relevant to each other. But cancer has been around for generations, and the COVID has only been around for, 8 months, 9 months.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I heard it was like it happened back in
2018? Well,
was out,
they call it COVID-19, but
nobody knew about it except for other people.
so as far as if it was a thing in 2018 or 2019, so in that case, we all could have been asymptomatic even then and just never knew it. Because that's one of the things that they point out. They talk about being asymptomatic and
Just like that flu that come out and killed other people.
the swine flu.
That flu, yeah.
The swine flu.
Then all of a sudden,
Then we had this.
disappeared.
Yeah, and then we had this issue with mosquitoes, the West Nile virus,
You don't
and
hear about that
in
now.
EEE, I think is what it was called. And we had all kinds of epidemics and pandemics. What about polio back in the 40s? I don't know. It's evidence of evolution
Same thing,
occurring.
That thing that Kelly's got.
Kelly doesn't have polio.
No, she's got lupus.
Yeah, she has lupus.
And there's another thing
But
they have to look into.
But the point is that all these epidemics, pandemics, diseases, and things,
Yeah.
though that's evidence of evolution occurring. It's not just the fact that we evolved. We share a common ancestor with the greater apes, and whether you like it or not, that is the truth. Science has demonstrated this to be the case.
What it is.
And my mom doesn't agree with that. I love my mom. Make no mistake. She does not agree. She's a Christian. She does not agree with science saying that this is how things happened. She doesn't agree. She argues with me on this. And it's not it's not to make my mother angry, but she believes that we were created by God. And I kindly tell her, I mean, if you're going to try to drill this into me or hammer this into me, I'm going to have to come back with a rebuttal, and I'm going to say you have no evidence for your claim. And the fact that I have a belly button tells me that I wasn't created by a god. I came from my mother.
Well,
The belly button, the umbilical cord is evidence of that. It's science. I'm sorry that there's people out there who hate science. They despise science. But science is the best method we have. It's the best thing we have that could ever come close enough to explain what's happening in our universe, what's happening in our world. Science is like the best toolbox we have. And medicine falls under that category of biological science. That's medicine and germs and like the epidemiologists. They tell us about diseases and things. Even my oncologists, Dr. Scott, Dr. Gira, Dr. Kulkarni, they studied this, and that's how they earned their credentials and educational degrees. They have higher education, and that's why they are in the position that they're in. There's a thing called peer review. And what peer review is that the overwhelming majority of scientists in that particular field of expertise, they come to a conclusion. They are unanimous in their findings, and if an overwhelming majority of scientists in the community say, this is our conclusion, this is the results that we're seeing from the investigation and the testing, which, by the way, testing and, tests that can be repeated in laboratory conditions, this is what we're finding to be the case. We're all reaching a unanimous conclusion. That information and the observations that they write down, that's passed on to the scholars. The scholars print that information in textbooks in colleges, universities, high schools, elementary schools even. I mean, when they teach kids science. All of that information is peer-reviewed. It's printed in textbooks. That information is taught to students who then go on to become the scientists or the doctors or whatever the case may be, whatever they're majoring in colleges and universities. That information is peer-reviewed, and that's what they're being taught, and that's what they are learning. It's all very simple. It's like a domino effect. And yes, science does change, but science corrects science. People don't correct science. Science corrects science. And when we learn about the correction, our understanding of the model expands. So in other words, when we gather more information, when scientists are able to dig up and do the work, when they're doing the work and the research, they discover something new. They stumble upon a new discovery. And they investigate it. They want to find things out about this new discovery. And when they have a better understanding, they use science to, figure out what's going on. Then the model expands. Our understanding of something expands when we have a better understanding of it. And I've been rambling. I know how these things work is what I'm trying to say.
What gets me is like a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you, well, this is wrong, and they give you these fancy long words that
Yeah.
you don't even know what they're talking about.
Well, it's a clinical
If
term.
they would just tell a person
In
plain
layman's
English,
terms.
plain English.
In layman's
This is what's
terms.
gonna happen to you. This is what's going to happen.
In layman's terms.
Yeah, in layman's terms.
Yes.
So people understand, because a lot of the science stuff that, like they talk about
Well,
on television,
Yeah.
and
Well,
you're just like, well, what's that? What does that mean? If they would tell the people,
the
for
reason...
the pandemic, they would tell people, okay, this is why you have to get the shot.
Mm-hmm.
In plain English, you don't get it, you die.
Well, the
That's what
reason...
people getting the shots and getting sick from it.
But the reason they use clinical terms is because that's the professional, appropriate, proper
appropriate
way
to do it.
to describe the scenario.
You know?
Like Wilms tumor. The clinical term is nephroblastoma. It's a long word, but it's the same thing. Basically, it's just a tumor on the kidney. That's what it is, and it mainly affects kids. So when the doctors or the oncologists, when they broke the news to you that I had Wilms tumor, I don't know if they mentioned the word nephroblastoma, but like the port, I had a Broviac port that was patented after a nephrologist from East Lansing, and I think he's still in practice. He's a nephrologist. He patented the Broviac port back in 1973. And I think he's still in East Lansing to this day. He's still in practice. So there's another piece of Michigan history, because I've been rambling on about other things that originated from Michigan. And, well, it's like Pfizer. We're talking about the COVID pandemic. Pfizer is big pharma. The main headquarters is in Manhattan, New York, but they were reporting from Kalamazoo, Michigan. So I'm guessing that Kalamazoo is like one of the big, like one of the Pfizer, and there's like a Pfizer company there, but it's like a big Pfizer company. It's in Kalamazoo. I don't know. It's just a guess. I could be getting the information wrong. That's why I encourage you to consult Google, because you'll get your accurate information.
Stuff to end where everybody can get along again.
What do you mean? Well, get along. We all get along. It's just it's this idea that people are being stuck at home. They're being forced to stay home, or if they go out, they have to wear a mask. Well, the mask wearing might be a reality, from now on. I don't know. I hope it's not the case. But hopefully when everything quiets down after the COVID kind of, we found a way to get rid of the COVID. Hopefully we'll start to become more lax on the restrictions again, and we'll be able to go inside of a restaurant. We'll be able to dine inside.
Well, if they quit breaking the rules
well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. If we can quiet down the COVID, if everybody could just, take the proper precautions, and we can help to obliterate
the only way they're going to do that
the COVID
is if they have the martial law.
No,
They're going to keep everybody in their
I don't know about that.
I do, because
I don't have enough information to say that is the case, but what I can say is if people follow the rules and if they follow protocol, there may be a chance that the restrictions will become a lot more lax, and we can start going back into restaurants, and we won't have to keep 6 feet social distancing and
shake your neighbor's hand. Hey, how you doing?
You can actually shake hands and hug and have that physical, that physical interaction, and enjoy intimate moments with partners and things like that. And that, that's really something too. Like, I had a thought and I lost it. Damn.
Hugging everybody
but it's really that's really where we're at. I mean, you just gotta follow protocol. The hand washing. That's what I was gonna say. Hand washing is a thing now. It's a trend. That really bothers me. That really worries me, because if hand washing today is something that is, it's a trend, it's what makes you cool by washing your hands, I'm very worried about that, because prior to the COVID, how many people have not been washing their hands? Like people who work in the restaurant industry, people who work in the kitchen and prepare food. If hand washing is such a big deal now, I'm worried about what was happening before the COVID and all the people who weren't washing their hands. You see what I'm saying? Like, do you get what I'm saying, Dad?
Yep.
Like, that's a bit worrisome to me. Like, how many people were actually practicing unsanitary things? Like they weren't washing their hands before handling food. I still got a little bit here. Yeah, if there's any out there, I'll take a refill. But it worries me how people, like wash your hands before returning to work. It just kind of bothers me how people How many people actually out there were not washing their fucking hands? I don't know. But anyway, I've been here for quite a long time. I think I've been here for well over an hour. I know it because I started recording at around 12:15, and it's already 1:36. I've been here quite a long time. But anyway, so I guess I'm going to wrap it up. I've just been sitting here rambling about, all kinds of different things. I'm doing okay, and I appreciate, like I said, I've been receiving packages from people that at first I didn't even know who the stuff was coming from. But after kind of digging a little bit, doing a little bit of research, like I was getting, I got men's house slippers, and I've been getting sweatshirts in the mail, and all these different packages from people that I didn't know who it was coming from. Like my mom sent me a box of just a bunch of different cheeses and things. I didn't know it was mom. I thought it was my friends in Iron Mountain, and it's like, did you send me a box of different cheese? No, it wasn't us, but you do have some goodies on the way, and it's like, oh shit, you don't have to send me anything. I'm not expecting anything. I'm just trying to figure out where all this shit is coming from. But yeah, we appreciate it, and Mom, thank you for the box of cheeses. And to my friend in Texas, who I found out, I later discovered that she was the one sending me the men's slippers and the sweater, the sweatshirts and things like that. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. And I did hook her up with a bunch of Christmas tunes, because she doesn't have any Christmas music, and she's got a tree and she's got presents, but she doesn't have any Christmas music to keep the Christmas mood for her kids. So I decided to send her copies of MP3s of Christmas music from my collection, because I've got like almost 150 Christmas songs in my collection, and I could probably build upon that collection if I really wanted to.
Sorry, Jerry, you only got a little sips in there.
Oh, that's fine.
Probably about 2 or 3.
That's fine. But thank you to everybody who's been texting and emailing and checking up on me. I appreciate the kind gestures, and I appreciate people who are just checking on me to see how I'm doing, and I appreciate that. And in closing, there's actually something I wanted to say to wrap up this video. 2020 has been a rough year for all of us, without a doubt, with no question about it. 2020 has been a lousy year. There's been a lot of fighting. There's been a lot of misunderstanding. There's been a lot of just people are constantly nagging back and forth at each other's throats. And I know I have been a proponent of that because I've called numerous people out in my Daily Rant recordings and in my Sunday video updates. It's to call people out on their hypocrisy because of the way they've treated me, which is the only reason why I ever talk about it publicly. And these people get uptight with me because I mentioned their name in a video, no more than they're putting my name on Facebook and slandering and all that shit. They're doing it to me. So for me to sit here and actually speak is no different from, speak about them is no different from them writing things about me on Facebook that aren't true. Now, there's been a lot of feuding and a lot of fighting and a lot of, miscommunication. I'm hoping that 2021 will be a better year. And as I pointed out in my Daily Rant recording, I am willing to bury the hatchet with people at any given time. I am willing to bury the hatchet with people simply because of the fact that I'm not getting any younger. Nobody is. Life is too short for fighting. And I don't want to fight with people. I just don't want to fight with anybody. And they can still hear you. But anyway, I don't want to fight with people. I want to bury the hatchet. I want to smooth things over. If you don't like me, that's okay. You don't have to like me. You just don't. I don't expect everybody to like me or love me or whatever. But when I only speak the truth about people and things, and I'm sorry if that's actually I'm not sorry. What the fuck am I apologizing for? I'm not sorry that the truth is too much for people to handle. I'm not sorry about that. I speak openly and vividly about things that I observe. And if you don't want that observation being mentioned publicly about you, then maybe perhaps you should modify your behavior, and then you won't give me something to talk about. Now, the shit that's being said about me, of course, I've been saying this for a very long time, these are unfounded claims. The claims that are being made about me they're being rendered as invalid because they don't have the evidence to substantiate their claims. And I mentioned this in the Daily Rant recording as well. I've described, I'm not trying to tell people what to think. I'm trying to explain to people how to think. And if you don't have a firm grasp or an understanding of logic and evidence and critical thinking, then you are in serious trouble, because reality is dependent on what we are trying to discover is true, not just about people, about the world, as I pointed out, about, the earth being a sphere and all that stuff, but it also applies to people. The things that the things that we say about each other, we have to make sure. Human beings are poor. We have poor, ways of judging. The human beings are not the best equipped creatures on this planet to, to judge things. We're not the greatest. And what I'm saying is, and I'm to steal a page from Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's like my fucking hero. We only care about objective truth that we have data to confirm, not through someone's, vision, which could be subjective. We want objective information, objective truth. And that's what we're shooting for all the time. And that's what I'm hoping for. The more I know, the more information I have, the more accuracy I have of something, the better off I'm going to be. But in any event, and I kind of went off topic for a minute, but I want for 2021 to be a better year for everybody. I don't want to fight with anybody. I don't like to call people out by name publicly, but they seem to do a good job of doing that same shit to me. And I know there's people out there who they've listened to some of the things I've said and they don't agree, and you don't have to agree. I had made kind of a sideways statement about, we don't have thought crime legislation in America, which, by the way, we don't. And it tied in with this point I had made about, we don't pedophilia is an attraction. We don't punish the attraction. We punish the action. When something happens, that's what we punish. We don't punish thoughts. We punish actions. We don't have thought crime legislation in this country, and people had heard what I said, and they had taken it as, Jared is a pedophile sympathizer. Well, guess what? I can tell you that there most certainly is. There most certainly are pedophiles who don't act on their ambitions, and they are actively seeking treatment so that way they don't slip up and make that mistake of actually doing something. So I'm not going to disparage pedophiles. What I will disparage are people who actually molest kids and rape and do all this other disgusting shit. Yeah, I will disparage those people. Those people deserve to be punished. But you can't help what you're attracted to. So if there are, in fact, people out there, which there are, if there are people out there who are pedophiles, they have this pedophilia way of thinking, but they have not hurt anybody, they haven't done anything wrong, and they are actively seeking treatment to, fight against that, then more power to them. I'm not going to disparage them. And I'm not defending creeps. That's what people like to write it off as, Jared is defending child rape. You're just a fucking idiot, because that's not what I said at all. If you would actually pay attention and listen to what I'm saying, you would understand what I'm getting at. We don't have thought crime legislation in America. It just doesn't exist. But don't be mad at me for that. That's just the way things are. We don't imprison people for their thoughts. If that were the case, I would have been in prison a long fucking time ago for having the thoughts that I had, which, by the way, my thoughts are nobody else's business. They're not.
There'd be a lot of people in prison
Yeah.
for thinking shit.
My thoughts are nobody else's business. My thoughts are nobody else's business. They're not yours. They're not Dad's, and they're not Amy's. Just like their thoughts are none of my business. And they're not any of your business. That's just the way it is.
That's going to be an all-day thing, ain't it? Right there.
Oh, uploading? Oh, yeah, I've been here for well over an hour. So you might be watching this on a Monday or a Tuesday or whenever, this video uploads. But that's just the truth of the matter, dude. That's an objective truth, man, whether you like it or not. So you can call me a pedophile sympathizer, you can call me whatever you want, but the fact of the matter is that we do not have thought crime legislation. I could have a desire to rob a bank,
But it ain't going to happen.
but until such time as I actually do that, I'm not going to be punished for having that thought that I want to rob a bank. I want to burn somebody's house down, which, by the way, I'm not violent. I'm not a violent person. I might want to kick somebody's teeth down their fucking throat.
That don't mean
But until such time as I actually do it, you can't punish me for having a thought. You just can't.
I'd be in prison right now.
That's how that works. We punish the crime, not the thought. And it is true.
Long time.
And it is true that thoughts inform our actions, but if you have a moral filter, if you know in your mind that there are consequences for doing things that you're not supposed to do, you're not supposed to harm other people, you're not supposed to kill other people, you're not supposed to do things that are harmful or detrimental to other people because there's consequences. If you have that moral filter, then you will know right from wrong, and you just won't do it. I don't know what else to say. Do you have anything to add to that?
No.
I mean, I think I pretty much covered, I've hit every nail on the head as far as I can tell. But I have been here for a very long time, and I got to get going because it's going to take all fucking day for this video to upload to my YouTube channel, and I got things to do.
Amy got things on.
You got something to say, go for it.
And
Fire
if
away.
there are people that do want to get a hold of you to apologize, I think they should do it on your cell phone, not the house phone, because what happens if you're not here?
Well, and I know what you're getting at, and I was actually telling you last night that I didn't want to mention any names, and I wasn't going to bring them up.
We're not going to mention no names,
Right.
but
That person,
I brought
That
on.
person who called my cell phone and then my house phone.
if you want to talk,
If you want to be civil in a conversation, and if you're going to call to apologize, because that's really all I want to hear from you is an apology. As I mentioned in the Daily Rant recording a couple days ago,
we'll come to an agreement.
if you want to bury the hatchet, if you're going to offer up an apology, that's the biggest thing. You owe me an apology. You owe me a fucking apology. And if you're not going to offer that, then I've got nothing to say to you.
And don't threaten him. Don't call him threaten.
No, I'm not, and yeah, don't threaten me, and I'm not going to threaten you. I don't make threats.
This is 2021 coming. Let's make it a good better
Yeah,
year.
and that's what I'm saying.
Make it a better year.
I don't want to fight with people. But the thing is I can if you're going to act in a certain way, like I was already hot-tempered anyway by the way I was treated by the Child of Cancer World. So when I'm hot-tempered, I don't fucking care what anybody thinks about what I have to say. I'm going to tell it like it is. And if you're going to give me reasons to talk, then maybe you should modify your behavior and say, well, he has a point. But see, they can't agree with Jarrett Fuller. I can never be right because I'm the bad guy. Well, that's wonderful. I will continue to be the bad guy and speak the fucking truth. And that's pretty much it. But hopefully, I strive to make 2021 a good year, and I want to get along with people. I'm extending my hand. I'm extending the fucking olive branch, and I'm saying, let's get along. Let's come to an agreement. Let's meet each other halfway, and let's just bury the hatchet. Let's smooth things over. Let's just go our own separate ways. We don't have to like each other or talk to one another, but let's just go our separate ways. And I would be perfectly okay with that. But if you want to be friends with me and if you want to repair a broken friendship, I'm down with that too. Let's work on something here. Let's try to work unanimously and become friends and you know,
Talk about the same thing, though.
but what I want is an apology. What I'm owed is an apology. And that's it. You owe me an apology. A lot of people owe me an apology, but I'll never get the apologies. So I'm not gonna hold my hand on my ass because it's gonna grow there, as far as getting an apology is concerned. But listen, guys, I gotta go. I've been here for a very long time. You guys have any final words?
No, just be safe and get along with everybody and help make it through this wild pandemic thing going on.
Yeah,
Everybody be safe, take care of each other. Because everybody needs everybody.
very
We're
true.
all fighting for one thing,
To survive,
survive.
to
in this
make
world.
it. Amy, anything to add?
Peace out. Everyone be safe.
That it?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's it.
I just going lightly.
So I will be here next week on the 20th of December, and it'll be the week of Christmas. We're not putting up any. It's another year of a, we're not going to be festive. We haven't put up a tree in years. We're not putting up lights or decorations or anything like that. But we it will be the week of Christmas, and we'll probably have that discussion.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Well, it's not. I'll say that next week because next week is the 20th and it's the week of Christmas. And but if you don't, okay, to be fair, if you're not here next week to see next week's video, Merry Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas. That's fair enough, I think.
Yeah.
So Dad was actually right on the money. Okay, guys, I'm out of here. This is going to take all fucking day to upload. I got things I got to do. I have other engagements today, and I got to take care of that business. So much love. Thank you for watching, and thanks for listening to me and sitting through all this time that I've just been sitting here flapping my gums. I will be back next week, Sunday, December 20th. So much love. Peace out, and take care. Have a good one. Have a good week.